Have you heard of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation? Its purpose is to provide support through advocacy, education, and fundraising for the Elmhurst History Museum, our local Elmhurst history, and the Churchville one-room schoolhouse. Established in 2007 as a nonprofit organization, we initiated an endowment fund and raised funds to complete the renovation of the historic Churchville schoolhouse. We conducted a capital campaign to develop the new exhibit, by all accounts, the story of Elmhurst, at the History Museum, and we continue to provide financial support to enhance exhibits, programs, and events at the museum. Yes, we feel strongly about our mission and encourage you to become a member or donor of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. Please call or go to our website for more information to learn about the benefits of becoming a member or donor by investing in our town, our history, our heritage.
Good morning and welcome to Community Conversations on this beautiful day. Thank you for attending. My name is Cathy Jordan and I am the chair for the Elmhurst Senior Commission. The commission provides information, advice, and advocacy to enhance the quality of life for adults in Elmhurst. Before we start our program, I just have to thank Steve Morley, who is our mayor, and our city council for all their support to seniors in our area. And I would also like to thank Jewel for our treats today. And of course, I would be, it would not behoove me to not recognize our commissioners. You're only as good as the people that you work with, and our commissioners really do try and provide good presentations for everyone in the community or the surrounding areas. Jackie Haddad, Grayson Haller, Kathy Lorenz, Chris Hansen, and Peggy LaCicero are here today. So I'd like to give them a round of applause because they are really super to work with. Today, our presentation covers a very important topic, maintaining a positive outlook as we age. This informative presentation will be provided by Meredith Kober, Community Education Director, and she has brought a guest with her, James Lattimore, who is a peer support specialist. So I look forward to a wonderful presentation, and without further ado, Meredith. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you to the Elmhurst Senior Citizen Commission for inviting us here today. We're really excited to share a little bit more about what we do at NAMI DuPage. My name, again, Meredith Kober, and my background is in social work. I've had a great career in several different areas: workforce development, child welfare, even development for organization in the city, and now with NAMI DuPage. And across all of those areas have certainly intersected with the mental health field. So I'm really excited to be in this role with NAMI, where I get to talk about stigma and how that affects mental illness and signs and symptoms of mental illness, and just to tell about our services that we have at NAMI DuPage. So I have a PowerPoint here for you today. We do, of course, have a mission statement like any nonprofit does, and that is to provide support, advocacy, and education in order to improve the quality of life for individuals with mental illness and their families. Well, history on NAMI. It is one of the largest grassroots organizations on mental illness, and it started back in 1979. Locally, NAMI DuPage started in 1985, so we're looking at 32 years this year, and there's approximately 1,100 affiliates across the United States. And in the state of Illinois, we are the largest affiliate. In fact, we're one of the largest across the nation. I think we're the 5th largest in the United States. So the services that we're going to talk about, what we do in NAMI DuPage, is a little different if you had a friend across the United States where you say, hey, I heard about this, about NAMI, and you should go and talk with them. Hopefully they have some great services there, but they might be a little bit different than what we have to offer. So we are so fortunate to be able to do what we do. We want people to use what we have, and at the end I'll have the opportunity to share with you everything that we have to offer in DuPage County. Just to understand a little bit about who we serve. We serve individuals with a mental illness or a biological brain disorder, their families, and their caregivers. And there's nobody out there that's really providing support and services to the families of someone that has a mental illness. So that's a really key part of what we do. We're there to provide support to the family members. Just so that we're on the same page too with what exactly is a mental illness, I have a little definition here. So it's a mental disorder, a mental illness, is a diagnosable illness that affects a person's thinking, their emotional state, and their behavior. It disrupts the person's ability to work or attend school, carry out their daily activities, and even to engage in satisfying relationships. And a lot of times people say, well, how does someone get mental illness? So there's several factors that contribute to someone getting a diagnosis of a mental illness. It could be abnormal imbalance of chemicals in their brain. There could be some kind of psychological trauma in their life. It could be a medical condition or a hormonal change. There could be some kind of prenatal damage or a difficult or abusive childhood. So there's a lot of reasons, and sometimes it's not just one reason. It could be several reasons that someone has a mental illness. A little bit of facts for you. Studies show that approximately 1 out of 5 individuals at some point in their lifetime will develop or experience a mental illness. And that 1 in 5 data does include adolescent data now. At one time you might have seen 1 in 4. That just has incorporated the adult data. So of course we like to contend it's not just 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5. It's really 4 out of 4 or 5 out of 5, because it does affect everyone in the family. It's not just that one individual. And approximately 1 out of 17 individuals will at some point in their life experience a severe mental illness that does force them to make life changes. An example of that would be someone that has schizophrenia. 10 years, sadly, is the median amount of time that it takes for someone to seek out treatment. And there's a lot of reasons that are involved with the reason, somebody does not seek out treatment. There's a stigma attached to it. Maybe there's financial issues. Maybe there's not the resources in their community. So there's a whole lot of reasons that they're not seeking that treatment. And sadly, about 41% of people who do need mental health treatment every year are not actually receiving the help and the services that they need. And of course, like I mentioned, stigma is one of the biggest reasons that people are not actually seeking the treatment and the help that they need. And there's a little breakdown in our DuPage County area here. So Elmhurst, this data might be slightly outdated, but about approximately 43,000 residents here in just Elmhurst alone. So we look at that 1 in 4 data, it's saying that there is about almost 11,000 individuals just here in your community alone that are experiencing a mental illness, and approximately 2,500 individuals that are suffering from a severe mental illness. So those numbers are very high. When you look at all across DuPage County, we're looking at about 183,000 people in just our community here in DuPage County that are affected by a mental illness. And again, when you multiply that by 4 or 5 and how it affects everyone in the family, that's a lot of people that's affecting. So we are a great resource at NAMI to provide support and education for anybody that's experiencing a mental illness. So a lot of people ask too, when are these mental disorders diagnosed? So approximately half of all cases begin by about age 14. So you'll start to see those signs and symptoms in a young middle schooler, young teenager. And then we kind of break it down by some of the more common mental illnesses. So like anxiety disorders about the age of 7, eating disorders 12, substance use disorders 15. Schizophrenia is more of that older teenage years, college years, but very young adult years, like about the age of 22. Bipolar, about 25. And then depression, the typical age is about 32. But depression, that can be developed at any stage, but that would be about the typical age that you would see that. So just for some explanations about what mental illnesses actually are. They are a medical illness, just like a physical illness. So when you hear somebody that has diabetes, mental illness should really not be considered any different than someone who has a diagnosis of diabetes. In fact, those two are very similar. Somebody that has diabetes needs to get on medication. They need to make some lifestyle changes, like with exercise and diet, maybe their sleep. So there's a lot of similarities in that regard, but they really should not be considered any differently than a medical illness. A medical condition is something that changes how a person thinks, how they feel, how they act, and it is very common and treatable, as indicated by the 1 in 4 or 1 out of 5. A mental health condition is not anyone's fault or something that person should be ashamed of. Somebody does not wake up in the morning and go, oh, I think I'd like to have a mental disorder today. So this is not something that they're choosing to do. It's not something that they're choosing to live with. They are not limiting. So anybody can go on and live I use these in quotation marks, a normal, typical life when they are receiving the treatment that they need. There are some late life issues that may affect anxiety and depression. So for people in their older years, coping with physical health problems can lead to depression and anxiety. Someone that's experiencing chronic pain, caring for a spouse with dementia or a physical disability, even grieving the loss of loved ones or even children. Managing conflict with family members, because no family is perfect. There's always some issues, and that can cause a lot of stress and anxiety in someone's life. A lot of transitions. This is a period of time where there's transitions and moves. We're dealing with that with my mother-in-law right now and my grandmother. So there's a lot of anxiety that comes out of those transitions that they know has to happen, but it's hard to make that jump and to make that change. A lot of times that can result in isolation or loneliness for that individual when friends have passed away, people have moved away, and you can kind of start to self-isolate, and then that does cause some anxiety and depression for an individual. And then financial problems. If there's some financial worries about some care that's needed, maybe some rehabilitation or nursing home care, that does start to affect their financial worries as they're looking to make sure that they're covered with the needs that they have. So growing need for services for older adults. There is a demand for mental health services to rise. There's an expectation that's going to rise as there's more and more older adults kind of entering this new phase. Physical and mental health do affect each other. There's medical problems that have higher rates of depression, and then untreated depression in an older person can actually cause a medical problem and negatively affect the outcome that they have. So it's really important that the medical issues are getting treated along with any potential mental health problems at the same time. Studies have indicated that approximately 50 to 70% of all primary care visits are actually related to psychological factors such as anxiety and depression and stress versus just a medical issue. So again, if those things are being addressed at the same time, oftentimes both of them will start to lessen. Estimation of about 2/3 of older adults with a mental disorder are not receiving the services that they actually need, which again is only perpetuating the mental health issue and perpetuating the medical issues that they're presenting with. So just for your awareness, some general signs and symptoms that you want to look out for, not only for yourself, but for your friends and family members. So these are very general. So we're not gonna do a deep dive into how to diagnose somebody. We're certainly not therapists or psychiatrists here. So just to keep an eye out for these things. So if you notice that someone is feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, that's something to really pay attention to. We all experience something that makes us sad in life, especially, I'll use the example of a loss of a loved one. We're generally very sad and down about that. But if someone seems maybe a little extra sad for longer than 2 weeks, crying all the time, withdrawn, that might be a sign that there could be something a little more serious going on, because that loss could trigger something else. If they are exhibiting some kind of severe, out of control behavior that's really kind of uncharacteristic of that person, that would be another area that you would want to take a look at. If they have some kind of sudden, overwhelming fear for no reason, or that would maybe result in that racing heart, their physical discomfort or fast breathing, that's something that would need to be addressed as well. If they're experiencing some kind of drastic changes in their mood or their behavior, again, you're looking for things that are very uncharacteristic of them. Even the sleeping habits. If you are someone that has been, relatively a good sleeper, 7-8 hours, you go to bed okay, you fall asleep, you stay asleep all night, but all of a sudden, you either can't fall asleep or you're waking up multiple times during the night, maybe only getting 1 or 2 hours of sleep, that might be an indication that there's something going on. Intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activities, that's really important. Again, the key to all of this is to keep in mind that if it's impacting how you're living your daily life and forcing you to make some life changes there, that's where you want to start to take a look at something going on. Maybe if there's a lot of gastro problems going on, throwing up, not eating to lose weight, significant weight loss, or even significant weight gain, keep an eye on that. If someone starts using alcohol or drugs excessively, which again, uncharacteristic of that person, something to look at. And more severe if someone's actually trying to harm themselves, if they are making any kind of suicide attempts or making plans to do that, that's where you want to get immediate attention for that person, because that is obviously life-threatening for that individual. And if someone's saying that they're seeing or hearing things that are not real, you know that, okay, there's not really, a person coming to attack them in their home. You don't want to necessarily argue with that person, but they do need to seek treatment. Find out why they're seeing and hearing and believing these things that you know are not rational thoughts. If you do have concerns for a loved one, a family member, a friend, you do want to ask them how they're feeling. Share with them what you've noticed, not being accusatory or pointing your finger, but you rather using the I statements like, I have noticed that you blank, and I'm concerned about you. Don't focus on changing their behavior, but really just being encouraging and hopefully getting them to seek the treatment that they need. And I get to talk with you about what we do at NAMI. We're a great place to start with somebody that would have, if you have some concerns about somebody. So the things that are addressed or gained by addressing any of these concerns are decreased emotional suffering. We don't want our friends and loved ones to be suffering emotionally. So when these things are actually getting out in the air and talking about them, that person will experience some decreased emotional suffering, and that's really key. They will start to experience some improved physical health along with their mental health, which is great. They're going to have a better quality of life, which we want for them as well. They're going to have reduced healthcare expenditures, like I said earlier. Many times someone showing up in the doctor's office is not necessarily because of a medical issue, it's because of the mental health issue. So when those things are getting addressed, suddenly they won't be going to the doctor quite as often. They're going to have less primary care visits, they might have less medical procedures, they may even start taking less medication, which is really great too. So what are some of the things that we can do as far as paying attention and noticing and providing services? Increasing early identification and treatment of mental health issues in an older adult is really important. Providing those services where older adults actually frequent makes sense, right? To try to reach out to people where they are. So providing those services in the primary care settings, in senior centers, libraries, other community sites, really key. One of the highest rates of suicide, which I was really surprised to find this number out, is actually among senior white men. So I was thinking more when I first started delving into this mental health field that it would be more along the lines of teenagers, maybe young adults. So I was really surprised by that statistic. So it's really important that we're giving the services where they're needed and providing the support to those individuals. One of the ways that we can promote health, I did a little bit of research on just things, and I'm sure this is things that you guys already are aware of, memory training programs and enhancing that memory performance through online programs, things that are administered by an actual psychologist. Physical activity, really important, staying active. I mean, we all know that any kind of physical activity just releases those natural endorphins anyway, so we want to be able to just keep active, stay aware and awake, and things like walking or swimming are really beneficial for any of us, but particularly as we get older, where some of those activities may be more challenging, but also really important for our own mental health. So one of the things that makes NAMI unique is the fact that we use the lived experience from our speakers, our volunteers who are doing well in recovery and are willing to share their story about their lived experience with mental illness. And we also train any of our volunteers to become facilitators for our education programs, for our support programs. And now we have a whole new batch of individuals that I get to tell you about. That's our peer specialists. And they're individuals that have gone through like a 12-week training program to work directly with individuals on setting those small goals and encouraging them and kind of walking that path with them. And I have with me today one of our trained peer specialists. His name is James, and he's going to share his experience, his lived experience with you. So I'm going to welcome James. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm James. I'm a peer support specialist at NAMI, and I'm here to share my story of what my life used to be like before I got the care and treatment that I desperately needed. I'm from a very small town in Mississippi. I now live here in DuPage with my younger brother. I really enjoy working outside, doing horticulture work or working on small engines, but what I enjoy doing more than anything is helping others by giving them hope and encouragement. Although I had to overcome many obstacles in my life, I still had a passion for helping others. As a child, I witnessed some violence that resulted in my father's death. He was a very violent and abusive alcoholic that took all of his anger out on the family. And after his death, my mom moved here to Chicago, and I was raised by my grandparents. There was always alcohol and mental illness in my family. It seemed like everyone drank and I was always around it. Although it was something, I thought it was something cool for me to do, so I began sneaking little sips whenever I could before I went to school in the morning because it made me feel like I could fit in with other kids. As time went on, I began acting out and getting suspended for my behavior until one day I had an argument with my 5th grade teacher about my actions in class. I acted out that way because it was one of the things that made me feel better, and it was a way for me to get attention. But I went too far and got suspended for good. The school counselor told my grandparents I needed to talk to a psychiatrist and recommended that I be placed on a special education class. I had behavior problems, but the school decided not to allow me to return. Then I had to come live with my mom on the west side of Chicago, where I would hang out with the neighborhood gangs using drugs and alcohol. I really felt I belonged, and they accepted me. My drinking became a part of my everyday routine. I never felt comfortable being around other kids, and that's how I dealt with the feeling of feeling unloved and wanted at home. So I began feeling like I needed to do whatever it took to gain the neighborhood kids' respect. I had a very strong Southern accent and was insecure about speaking to people. So I began to structure myself through anger and being mean. And whenever I feel someone offended me, violence was always the answer. By the time I was 15, everything I was doing intensified even more. By this time, I was already kicked out of public school and had to attend a behavioral school with other kids just like me. We would fight every day with each other and with the teachers. There was a room called a box, in which I spent a lot of time in there. And it was an alternative to getting kicked out of school or something worse. It only made me more angry and develop resentment towards my mother because she gave them the okay to discipline me that way. After school, the rest of my day was consumed with getting high and selling drugs in the neighborhood. I would go to jail for a little while and then get out to continue doing the same thing. I couldn't understand why I always felt sad and why bad things happened to me. I wanted to change but didn't know how. In 2001, I got in trouble again and was sent to prison for armed robbery. And while there, I would fight every day and get into other troubles with inmates. By 2002, the prison doctor diagnosed me with bipolar depression and anxiety and prescribed medications. But I didn't accept the diagnosis. I thought I was okay and that I could do it on my own. I figured if I could get out of the environment I was in and stop using drugs and drinking, everything would fall into place. However, I found out that alcohol and drugs was only part of the puzzle and there was still missing pieces. I didn't realize those missing pieces were, in fact, the mental health aspect that I never took serious. After serving 4 years and 3 months, I was released, and for the next few years, I continued going to jails, hospitals, and programs. I would talk to the doctors and counselors about my mental state, but they would tell me it was due to my drinking lifestyle, and if I stopped using, I would feel better about myself. So I began being more serious about getting sober. But it seemed like the symptoms became worse. Every professional I talked to wanted to focus on my drug and alcohol use and not deal with the mental health part. I was eventually placed in mental health court where the judge assigned me a doctor, therapist, and also had me attend AA meetings and different support groups where I would listen to people talk about their feelings and how they were coping with them in a positive way. I started opening up more with my therapist and talking to my doctors about how I was feeling. I would hear people talking about acceptance in support groups, which was very hard for me to do because I thought I had everything under control. I would talk to my therapist about how hard it was for me to accept that my life was unmanageable. I slowly began opening up to the groups and accepting advice and applying their suggestions to my life. I began accepting that I can't change people or why they do the things they do, but I can change me and what I do, and that's what I began focusing on. But it began with me accepting that I had a problem. Acceptance to me means that I conceded to the fact that something was wrong and I needed help. I've always been the kind of person that thought everyone around me was the problem and I was okay if they would just leave me alone. And I lived like that for 31 years until I took a long look at my behavior. That's when I began to accept I really was the problem. So I began looking for answers. One of the biggest challenges for me was not to allow my pride or ego to get in the way of me asking for help. I learned that we all need each other, and it's okay to say it, I can't do something. Or talk about how I'm feeling. I began to realize that me not taking my medication that was prescribed to me was a big part of why I always felt the feeling of uselessness and self-pity and was always depressed. It was a lot more than me drinking. And when I began to take the medication, I realized the feeling of self-pity and uselessness began to fade away. I started feeling better about myself and realized that taking the medication was a big part of my journey. As time went on, I got myself a sponsor, which is someone who's not only in recovery, but a person who can guide me through the AA program and also be there to listen when I'm having a bad day or when I'm feeling the urge to use. The support groups I attended was extremely helpful. I was able to get a lot of emotional support from my peers because when I first came in, I was very unstable and used to suppressing my feelings with drugs and alcohol. I would never talk about how I really felt, so when I went into recovery, these feelings came out. My peers gave me the strength I needed. The support groups helped me change the way I think and taught me that I'm not a bad person, I just make bad decisions, and to be open-minded to suggestions and change. I also learned through the support groups how to think before I react when things don't go my way. I learned how to manage my anger, which was a big part of how I handle most situations in my past. I had nothing when I came to this program. I didn't think I would ever be anything, but today I'm happy. I have a strong support network. I'm surrounded by a lot of people that care about me. The staff at NAMI are great people who really care and do everything they can to help. There's also a large variety of support groups at NAMI, such as NAMI Connection. It's a very confidential weekly support group where we can learn from each other and talk about our different ways of coping with a number of different areas in our life. Then there's the RAP program, which is designed to strengthen someone and reach their goals. There are resources for learning to manage symptoms. There's also a program called the Living Room. It's a place where someone can find an alternative going to the emergency room when they're having a bad day. It's a safe and secure place where they can talk to someone like me who's living with a mental diagnosis. There's also a peer support specialist there, which is someone also living with a diagnosis and willing to share their experience and talk about some of the things that got them through their journey. They can also work on goal setting as well as provide information on resources. No matter how big or small, we are there to help you. There's also a lot of exciting activities such as yoga classes, games, and an exercise room, and different activities as well. NAMI also, as you can see, NAMI goals is trying to accommodate you as many different areas of your life. It's a great place to be. Today, I'm employable. I'm an active participant in my church. I volunteer every Saturday morning at the food pantry because I feel that's a way of me giving back to the community I took from for so many years. Some of my accomplishments include finishing a landscaping class. I guess I got green thumbs now. I also finished the peer support specialist class at NAMI, and because I know exactly what some of my peers may be going through. One of my biggest accomplishments was being able to gain employment through the same place I received my recovery. I want to share that story because one of the greatest accomplishments of all is for me to be able to share my lived experience with other people and give them hope, because I know what it's like to live a life and feel like I'm alone and nobody love me, nobody care about me. And it's really rewarding when I can talk to somebody and encourage them, because to me, I'm what I make myself to be. And whatever I think I am, that's what I become. So society wrote me off a long time ago and said that I was just a kid that had a behavior problem. They ignored the fact that maybe this kid have a mental problem. So they stuck me in a special education class, and that was the answer. And I lived a lot of years believing that I was just a bad kid. But places like NAMI and the people at NAMI helped me understand what mental illness is and what it is to live with it and how to live with it. You know, so I don't let my past define who I am. I let my future do that. And I learned how to have a positive attitude and know that I am somebody and I can be somebody by the encouragement of people like Meredith and other staff members at NAMI. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thanks for listening.
James, thank you so much for sharing. We couldn't do what we do without our speakers that are here to share their story. They're really my heroes. I so appreciate, I learned so much, and I'm so encouraged by them and just their willingness to share and their vulnerability, and it just, again, thank you. So I have some information to share with you about NAMI. This is our new home. We still say kind of new, even though we've been there for a little over a year. Is anyone familiar with where we're located? We're located over in Wheaton, in the county complex, so across from the courthouse and next to the health department. So this is a building that we're in partnership with the health department. So we kind of have the whole left side of the building there. They invited us to be a part of this project at the community center, and it's just a fabulous environment. If anyone wants to stop by and take a tour, more than happy to show you around. Just my card is in the back. Just stop in. We'll show you what we do at the community center. Like James started to allude to already, we have programs for individuals and families, and have information for you on that. So for individuals, we do have the support groups, which are a weekly drop-in group at various locations throughout the community. I do have an overview of services in the back that will show you the different locations and the dates and times for all of these groups. We have a drop-in center in several locations in the community for individuals to stop in. It's more of a socialization type of activity. He mentioned the WRAP class, which is the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. It's an 8-week class that we provide for individuals that are ready to take that next step in their recovery. Now we have a new employment readiness program, which is a great new addition to everything that we do, because we're kind of looking at that whole person and what they need. So this is a new program. They just finished one graduating class. It's a 7-week class for individuals that have a diagnosis that because of that, they've needed to step out of the workforce for a little while. We have opportunities for them for volunteering, allowing them to kind of gain confidence and some skills, while at the same time working on their resume, practicing some job search skills, some interviewing, which is really intimidating for anybody that's been out of the workforce for a little while. It's really challenging. That also leads to depression and anxiety just for your typical person. But if you have a mental illness, that can even be more difficult to kind of step back into that. So fabulous program. In the social recreation program, also new because of where we're located. There's activities happening there every day, every evening, and it's just a fabulous program. Our program director for that, all the social stuff, she does some amazing stuff. There's even special activities that happen on the weekends, and there's a women's jewelry making night, and that's open for anybody. So it's for anybody in the community. You don't have to have a diagnosis to be able to attend any of these things, and everything is free, if I haven't mentioned that already. So all the support groups, all the education classes, everything that we do here is free. For family members, also a really important aspect of what we do, we have the drop-in support groups for family members of a loved one with a diagnosis. We have the support group for parents who have a child under the age of 22 that has a diagnosis. We also have an education class called Basics, and that is for parents who have a child under the age of 18 with a diagnosis, because they're kind of in a scary place, especially if this is brand new for them. So these parents are learning how to kind of navigate the whole system with psychiatrists and therapists and schools and friends and family members who might not really understand what's going on with that child. We have our family-to-family class, which the Basics in the family-to-family is one of the NAMI signature programs, which is what got the whole program started years ago. So it's a 12-week education class for family members who have that family member with a diagnosis. So also really key to providing support and encouragement to that family member so that they in turn can understand and provide support for their loved one. And of course, family members are invited to the social recreation programs too. James, being one of our peer specialists, we have 36 new peer specialists. And that peer specialists that are designed to, the program designed to work with family members and individuals. So James is an individual peer specialist. We also have family peer specialists that are working with those family members of someone with a diagnosis. So they are working with our living room, which is also another program that we've been able to do since we're located at the community center. It is a drop-in place, an alternative to an emergency room. So if someone's experiencing a crisis, a mental health crisis, they're able to stop in. They're evaluated by a therapist from the crisis unit, an employee of the health department who just does a quick evaluation with them, making sure they're not a danger to themselves or others, and then they're able to meet with a peer specialist one-on-one for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it takes, so that they're able to talk with somebody that has that lived experience. Again, peer specialists, they're not doctors, they're not therapists, but there's someone who gets it and has gone through this intensive training and can work with that individual. So everything that we do is a complement to therapy, psychiatrists to therapists, and it's really designed to enhance the work that's already being done for that person. But when they're stopping in because they're in crisis, they're able to make another appointment with a peer specialist to come back and meet with that individual. And if therapy is needed or some kind of hospitalization, they're able to get pointed in the right direction for that as well. And they're evaluated when they leave as well. Our NAMI PD Connect program actually does a training to the police departments all over the county. We have a retired social worker that does this training. He was working in a police department for 30 years. So he talks the language of the police officers. And we're kind of modeling this training after the CIT training, which is the Crisis Intervention Team training. So they're getting all of the parts of that training, which is a 40-hour training, condensed into a 4 or 8-hour training. Those officers will most likely still go through the CIT training, but this is a good stopgap for them until they're able to actually get that 40-hour-a-week training. And they're learning signs and symptoms of mental illness, how to de-escalate a situation. So we want those officers to be safe on a call, and we want the individual for whom the call is for to also be safe. So we just want everybody to have that level of understanding of what that mental health crisis could look like and how they could best address that situation when they do receive a crisis call. The hospital program has been around for many, many years. We're fortunate to be in all of the 6 DuPage County hospitals with our speakers. So like James is also one of our speakers for our Speakers Bureau. We have individuals who go into the hospitals and share their lived experience with mental illness. We're in the inpatient units, outpatient units, and adolescent units. So we do approximately 35 hospital visits a month between all of them, kind of on a routine basis. Sometimes it's the same speaker, sometimes we mix that up, but we're able to have about 35 times where individuals that are in the hospitals are hearing that story, because we want them to understand that people have been where they are, literally in the same rooms where they have been hospitalized, and to provide that story of hope for them that says, I get it, I know where you've been, but there is hope. You can recover from this. You can live a quality life even with a mental illness. We are fortunate to be in almost all of the schools here in DuPage County, with middle schools and high schools. We had created about 10 years ago a program called Ending the Silence, which is a 50-minute program given to, again, middle schoolers, high schoolers. We got it in through the health departments, so they're able to kind of supplement that teaching that's going on with the health teacher on ending the silence. So those kids are learning general signs and symptoms of mental illness, what that looks like, most importantly, how to reach out to one another and to have those conversations with their teachers, with their school counselors, and most importantly, their parents. So it's been proven to dramatically change lives and to save lives. We're actually undergoing evidence-based assessment right now, and I believe it's in its 3rd year, so they can prove that it is saving lives and helping these kids. I have a couple pictures of our facility here. So this is our Rise and Shine Cafe. We have many volunteer opportunities for individuals. You don't have to have a mental illness to volunteer, but we do have many individuals who do volunteer with us that do. We have this fabulous cafe run by a great team, and it is one of our social enterprises. we're not really, we're not making money on it. Everything that we do make goes right back into our programming. But they're open from about 8 to 2, so if you're ever over in the area, they serve some great coffee, they have great cookies. They're even starting to do some catering. So there's just a lot of things that they can do out of this cafe, and it's really so fun to see an individual that is kind of new to volunteering in that role, that maybe was very nervous and shy and not making a lot of eye contact, and then I go up and get my coffee a couple weeks later, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, hello," and making eye contact, and really it's just a great experience, really building their self-confidence and their self-esteem so that they can go into that work readiness class and get a job. We've had several individuals that have already gotten full-time employment because they've had some time to volunteer in this cafe and to go through that program. So it's really also, that's changing lives too. We have a print shop. We have really enhanced what we were already doing with our print shop. So we're doing orders for people all over the community. It's a way reduced cost than like a typical print shop would be. And again, our volunteers are learning some soft skills, some hard skills in the print shop. And then any of the monies that we're receiving from that filtering right back into what we're doing and enhancing everything that we're doing. A little bit about our recreation and social programs. I highly recommend checking those out. Again, they're free, they're fun. We have cultural night. I think last night they did Night of Beauty. So just a lot of fun stuff going on. The women's jewelry making, which we're also selling the jewelry items that are made by the women at this night. I think there's going to be a sale the week of Mother's Day, which is in May. I think it's May 10th is the sale. I'd have to check on the website. But any items are for sale, and of course they're for sale at any time during the year, and just some beautiful items are being made. We are also looking for older jewelry that they can kind of take apart and build new pieces out of. So if you guys ever have anything you want to donate along those lines, we would love to repurpose those pieces that you're not using any longer. We do have a couple of special events coming up. We do have a Shine a Light Gala, May 6th, and May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month, so that's why our gala is in May. And we would invite you to come and join us for the gala if you would like. It's going to be really fun. It's a Kentucky Derby theme because that is apparently Kentucky Derby Day. So we have a golf and bridge event coming up in July, and we do a run walk. It's going to be in September in the downtown streets of Wheaton, and then we have a fun event called Uncorked and Uncapped in November. These events and fundraisers are very important to us because we do not receive any state or federal funding, which many people are very surprised about, but we have no guaranteed source of funding from year to year. So everything that we receive is from foundation grants, corporate grants, our fundraisers, our NAMI membership. So we work really, really hard. We have a fabulous development team that works hard to bring those dollars in, and we are a nonprofit, and then all those monies go right back into being able to build and support our programs. All of our facilitators are volunteers, so any of the classes that are done, that 12-week class, the basics class, the RAP class, all done by volunteers who, some of them are actually doing the class 2 or 3 times a year, which is amazing that they're donating their time in that regard. And we truly couldn't do what we do without all of our volunteers that are supporting what we do. I think that's it. So if you have anything else, yep. So thank you so much for having us here today.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, James. Thank you so much for all that wonderful information. And James, it takes a lot of courage to do what you did today. So continue to do that. It's a great story, and it's very positive, and you should be very proud. So let's give them a round of applause again. I have 2 short advertisements. One is I'd like to introduce Helen Fitzgerald. She is from Metropolitan Family Services. That is actually housed here in the City Hall, and she has lots of resources for seniors and can point you in the right direction besides the services that are offered by Metropolitan Family Services. And then Karen Augustine is here from Courts Plus. I told her she could talk for like 1 minute if you'd like to come up and tell us what you would like to convey, and then we'll close, okay?
Thank you
Okay.
Appreciate it. 1 minute. Okay,
Oh, right here.
right in here. I have a big outdoor voice, though. I'm sure everyone can hear me. I work for the Elmhurst Park District. Some of you I know. I've been with the Park District for 43 years, and I'm over at Courts Plus, and we are having a health fair 2 weeks from today, and we're going to have lots of goodies and free screenings. So I am inviting whoever wants to come to come. There'll be vendors there, some you will recognize. In fact, you guys should be over at our health fair too, so maybe I could get in
talk about that.
later, yeah. So we have lots of good things going on. Come over and see the club. We have lots of offerings for older adults. We have a 2-week free membership, and this 2 weeks starts when you decide to start it, not when not just with the card like it's just now. It's whenever. So come check us out, see what we have to offer. No more non-resident fees. Villa Park, Lombard pays the same as Elmhurst. So come check us out. I will be there. If I can answer questions, I will be more than happy. Thank you for your time.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. You know, it's always nice to have something, and I'm glad that that 2 week doesn't have a limit on it. A lot of times it isn't workable for people, so that's really an enhancement. I'd like to close. I always close with a little saying. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain. I felt it was apropos, not necessarily for today, but you know, we've been getting lots of rain. So I'd like to share, have a nice Easter and make it a good day.
Have you heard of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation? Its purpose is to provide support through advocacy, education, and fundraising for the Elmhurst History Museum, our local Elmhurst history, and the Churchville one-room schoolhouse. Established in 2007 as a nonprofit organization, we initiated an endowment fund and raised funds to complete the renovation of the historic Churchville Schoolhouse. We conducted a capital campaign to develop the new exhibit, by all accounts, the story of Elmhurst, at the History Museum, and we continue to provide financial support to enhance exhibits, programs, and events at the museum. Yes, we feel strongly about our mission and encourage you to become a member or donor of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. Please call or go to our website for more information to learn about the benefits of becoming a member or donor by investing in our town, our history, our heritage.